the Daily Editors podcast, the conversation that we have every day with Standard Group journalists, editors, to discuss the big issues of the week and what is making news in our bulletins and our newspapers. Of course, today, I'm your host, CEO Charles Otieno, alongside the great men who have covered the political beat for a long time. To my far right, the man, the mountain himself.
Asante, I am Dungo Gachane.
Yes.
I'm a political reporter here at the Standard Media Group.
Uh-huh. Yes. And for the first time, the man from the lakeside.
Thanks a lot, Bwana Charles. My name is Brian Otieno.
Yes.
I hear ulikuwa umeanza kunipandisha cheo kidogo, calling us editors. But we are just reporters. I'm a political reporter with the Standard.
No. You see, when you report, you're also editing some stuff. So you're editors.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah. So now, gentlemen, you've been in this forum for some time now. Yesterday, the Parliament, the Committee on Appointments, passed a clean bill of health for the three so-called, I'm saying Gashane so that you do not say they are not Uhuru appointment men, so-called. What will happen next?
Number one, I insisted yesterday that those are not Uhuru's men. And I will repeat, because I see and I repeat that there is a clear strategy for some people to misuse the media and create a narrative and perception that Uhuru is in Kenya Kwanza administration. By the way, former Nakuru governor has his party called Ubuntu People's Party.
Yes.
Former Kiambu governor has a party called Tujibebe wa Kenya Party. And he was a principal of the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And then we have now Mutahi Kagwe. And I said Mutahi Kagwe's relationship with Uhuru is a bit private because it's about the families. And by the way, if you were to look at that particular angle, you see that the three nominees are in a way related to former bigwigs in the government without expounding further. But this morning we learned that the National Assembly, the Committee on Appointments, gave a clean bill of health to the three. That is something that should worry Kenyans, because at no particular point we have seen the National Assembly, especially that Committee on Appointment, turning down President William Ruto's appointees. Because we had some very peculiar and interesting questions, especially on Nakuru governor. He was, at some point, he actually lost his cool because he was asked, can you substantiate the claims that you dumped the street children at a certain forest in Nakuru? He almost lost his cool. So that's something that touches on fundamental human rights. If this committee had done investigations and pressed him further, that alone warrants that the Committee on Appointments to actually dismiss his name. But what were we told today? They went for a retreat yesterday. Today, they are issuing a report that watu weupe kama pamba. So to me, the National Assembly is a boundary for President William Ruto because we have not seen them turning down any name, especially for the president.
Brian, I heard, but Gashane is telling us the cabinet, the parliament has not. But Stella was turned down.
Yeah, she was turned down.
Why, Gashane? Stella was turned down. What is the reason? Is it right for us to say that they've never turned down people?
I think it's not entirely accurate.
Yes.
But it's mostly true that they don't turn out any nominees that the president would want to appoint.
Yes.
But then Stella, in the case of Stella, I believe that she's not someone who is considered political.
Yes.
So it's easy.
She's not a heavyweight.
Yeah, she's not a heavyweight. So it's easy to do away with such a name. But then look at the three guys that the president appointed, Kabogo, Lee Kinyanjui, and Nani. And who was the other one?
Mutahi Kagwe.
Yes. Yeah, what's the motivation for appointing these three people? what's the motivation for the president? What does the president hope to achieve? He hopes to achieve the sense that, you know what, I still value Mount Kenya first. I still value Mount Kenya. And the second bit of it is that Gashane, says that they're not Uhuru's allies. Yes, they're not.
Yeah.
They may not be Uhuru's men, but the appointments came after the president met Uhuru. So he wants to convey the message that, you know what, Uhuru and I are in the same boat, which he hopes will be detrimental to Gachagua in their power play. But then that points to a very disturbing situation, very disturbing reality with our country, that we are organized along ethnic lines, and that the president knows that he can capitalize on these weaknesses. Yeah, but then what he forgets is that the circumstances that forced him to dissolve his cabinet were such that the public were disenfranchised with his government. The young people did not care who was in cabinet. They just want to see the government deliver for them. Yeah.
So you brought a very interesting point that politics is local, and the Ruto president is trying to play into the narrative of tribal jingoism, and Mount Kenya, which we think, and Gashane will tell us, is it still at crossroads, or is it moved, or is it in Jigirigiji's back pocket? Which way forward?
I think Mount Kenya, Ruto lost the grip.
Yes.
For Mount Kenya region. Kitambo sana. And one of his strategies of regaining trust is what Brian is talking about. He's trying to appoint people who could have some political influence, so that they can actually be Gachagwa's checkmate. And he's doing that in full realization that this is the region that has actually left him. And it's unfortunate, because instead of focusing on what the people want, he is trying to reintroduce ethnic balkanization so that he can have his way. To that effect, that tells us that all what he did after the Gen Z's protests, he did not understand what they wanted, because they were calling for accountability. They were asking the ministers not to vomit on their shoes. They were talking about opulence. But where are we now? We are back to where we were, square one. So instead of president understanding what Kenyans wanted when they went to the streets, he understood that they wanted this thing he's called broad-based arrangement. Kenyans were not calling for broad-based arrangements. They were calling for accountability. They were calling for an aid on issues with corruption. They were calling. They were not called. They didn't care which the man from which tribe is on the top seat. No, they were calling for accountability. But unfortunately, even the people he fired when he dissolved cabinet, he fired people like Murkomen, who was flaunting expensive shoes and belts. What position is he holding now?
Interior.
Is he holding interior docket?
The most
significant docket in the country.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
with that undisclosed budget.
It is actually called the confidential budget. This is the confidential vote is the one which is used to actually influence people like bloggers.
Yes.
So to drive a certain propaganda. It's called government-sponsored propaganda.
Yes.
So the man at the helm of that budget is none other than Kipchumba Murkomen, the man people wanted out.
But I think Gashane raises a very valid point.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he talks about the president not understanding what the youth
wanted, yes.
I tend to think that the president understood what they wanted, but he was not ready for any accountability.
Yes.
He wasn't, because he was being told it's as simple as, you know what, telling the police that this is how you should operate, keeping away from them, letting them run their things independently. as simple as firing the inefficient cabinet secretaries, keeping a government that, ensuring that his government follows the law. But the president does not want to do that. Why? The big question I think should be, why does the president not want to, why doesn't he want to heed the call of the young people? Yeah. And it's a thing we see with other presidents, where they maintain unhealthy relationships with their security agencies. So it's a sort of scratch my back, I scratch yours. They enable the police to act in a way that, they want to act, so that whenever they want to use them for their political goals, it's easier to do so.
Yeah, it's called managing politics through the police. And Brian had written a very good piece on today's Standard, saying that where the buck
stops here.
You see, so and it is a very interesting piece actually, because when the president took over, he promised that he will end extrajudicial killings.
Yes.
He also vowed to establish a financial autonomy to the police service, so that there is no police interference. That's what he said. And true to his word, he established the National Police Task Force. And do you know who he appointed to head the docket? To show his seriousness? Former or retired Chief Justice David Maraga. And he also actually dismissed a squad. What was it called? There was a name.
Kwekwe or Cobra
there was a
squad.
certain name that was, we were told it was killing and maiming people. So the God-given president again said we are scrapping this particular unit. But now, where are we?
Back to the square.
So that means all what he had promised, and even the report, the Maraga, Maraga came up with a report that actually endorsed issues to do with financial autonomy, the issues of political non-interference or something to do with that, with the police. But now, the Minister for Public Service, the person in charge of hiring and firing of government officers, has told us it took the president to call Haji to release his son. He's telling us that the president is aware, he is behind those abductions, and it is unfortunate.
And this is a person who was AG, who sat in the National Security Council.
So the question is, with that analysis, is the president loved because he's God-given? Is the president hated, or is the president despised?
Charles, you want to get us in trouble?
I think the president is not loved.
Yes,
true.
But unfortunately, the people who surround him tells him so. You are the king, hail the king. You are the king of the jungle. Nobody's like you. You are going to rule for 100 years. You see?
Yes.
Even we can make you rule for 24 years.
Yeah, we manufacture. This is a country we manufacture 24 years. We are a country of 24 years.
Even if the votes fall short,
we are going to manipulate. So the president is actually despised and hated. He is hated because he does not fulfill the promises. He is hated because the people who surround him are misleading him, and they are telling people mutadu. And because Brian told us the buck stops with the president here.
The buck stops here.
So if you tell us, if Sudi tells us that don't worry, we will have our own Dharakanidhi.
Mkarabati engineer.
And then the National Assembly Majority Leader comes and tells us that, by the way, if you think that Sudi does not talk in Parliament, he is the one who organizes what we do, our business. So when such a person says that we are going to manipulate the 2027 presidential results, that is particularly saying that they are going to rig. And the president is there, he is smiling and probably clapping his hands. What does that mean? That either they have his blessings, or he is not in charge. So he needs to tell those people to
Tone down.
tone
But
down.
Yeah,
but
and
the
I
pre-
think-
yes, continue.
Yeah, I
Brian.
agree with him that the president is hated, but to me, I don't think it matters a lot whether or not he's hated. The president can make unpopular decisions that work for Kenyans. Yeah. At first, such policies would potentially hurt Kenyans, but then in the long run,
Yes, they benefit.
we will start to see some benefits.
Fruits.
But then the president is making unpopular decisions, but these decisions do not help the common mwananchi.
Yes.
Yeah, he's constantly milking Kenyans for more. He's constantly encouraging the abuse of rights, of civil rights. So the president should work for Kenyans, and it won't matter whether people love him or hate him. Yeah.
So when you say that the president should work for Kenyans, one of the biggest things the president is supposed to do is to spearhead the formation of IEBC. And we are 2 years or 2.5 years to election. And there are court cases which are still there. We do not have, there are constituencies which have been without an MP for almost 2 years now. And these people are lacking the requisite representation in parliament. How do we get out of this mess?
I think political goodwill.
Yeah.
Political goodwill is lacking
Yeah.
in constitution of IEBC. And President Ruto's footprints are all over, and that of his broad-based brother, Raila Odinga.
Yes.
Because why are we not having
IEBC.
IEBC? Is it panel? Panel?
Yeah,
Selection panel.
The selection panel. It
Yeah.
is because they cannot agree on one commissioner. I mean, one member of that particular panel. Because we have seen there is a guy called
Augustus
Muli. He has a party. By the way, he is a party leader, and he is the only member. That party has no elected, has not sponsored any person in Bunge, and that party is a member of Azimio. Then we have Wiper, headed by Kalonzo Musyoka. Now, Wiper has
Koki Muli.
Koki Muli.
Yeah.
While the party leader of that party called is and something, headed by the other Muli now, the gentleman. This Muli seems to have some blessings from the powers that be. Now, Wiper, because you see, nowadays Kalonzo is calling himself the Loyal People Opposition Party.
the leader of the People's Loyal Opposition.
Loyal Opposition.
The leader of people's loyal opposition.
Because the opposition leader we knew
Yeah.
is already in bed with government.
Okay.
That is true. Why are you rushing, bro?
But the opposition leader told us that he donated
How?
4 cabinet ministers, 4 people, his deputy party leaders, to the bread-based government.
Bread-based.
But can you then call him the opposition leader
You can't.
when 4 of his cabinet secretaries are?
This is Kenya's candidate for AUC
yes.
chairmanship bid. Kenya's candidate.
Yes.
And Kenya, we mean government. And the leader of this government is known. So this is essentially President Ruto's candidate for AUC. We'll come, I believe we'll come to that.
We'll come to
So,
that.
if those court cases, that court case can be these people can
Be
withdraw that
fast-tracked,
case,
yeah.
or even withdraw, because it is a matter of national security. If people can be living without an MP or even an MCA
For 2 years.
for 2 years, we are even denying them their right for representation.
Yeah.
And the people should go to court and call. If they have no MP, then Brian has no right of being represented. They should all go home, so that we can fast track to the constitution of IBC, so that because if Brian is represented by an MP and others are not, it's unfair for those people.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that 2 years to the election we don't have a selection panel, not the IEBC itself. even a selection panel. And I think we should now focus our energies on taking this thing away from politicians, because they're holding the nation hostage. Yeah. So even a constitutional process such as the reconstitution of the IEBC has to wait for them to finish their issues first, to settle their matters, settle their differences. Yeah, it's so wrong that a small group of people think that they are the biggest partakers of the constitution, think that they are the biggest stakeholders in a country of now close to 60 million people. So we shouldn't depend on goodwill, because that's what is hurting us right now. The constitution of the IEBC, I think, should now be moved away from the politicians alone. Yeah, you saw when the president changed the IEBC laws, immediately he was elected into office. He wanted to appoint a new commission. Selected Kina Nelson Makanda selection panel. But then they went into talks through the NADCO reports. And I remember covering those NADCO talks. And you'd hear, you know what, hii mambo ya IBC kwanza itakaa kando until we finish our business. Yeah, so the nation cannot stop because two people are disagreeing. Yeah, the nation must move forward. So I think the IEBC, we blundered when we didn't set timelines for the reconstitution of the selection panel, for the reconstitution of the IEBC. We should have said it clear, but then one wonders.
There's no law in the constitution that forces the president's hand into.
There is none. There's just the recommendation from the Kriegler Commission that it should be set up. I think it's a year, 2 years.
I think 2 years.
2 years before the next election. Yeah, but then one wonders, would the president even obey such a law?
Never.
Yeah, we have the boundary review deadline.
You know, the IBC cannot even conduct the boundary review. They are now past the schedule.
What is the schedule for a boundary review?
They were supposed to, is it 3 years? No, it was actually supposed to be in the last
year. Yeah.
But they pushed it to this year, February. Eh?
No, it cannot be pushed because it's a constitutional timeline.
Yes.
Yeah.
But why do they push? Because they are supposed
There's
now
no
to...
IBC.
Exactly. You see, so already we are living in a very interesting period, because the work of IEBC has actually stalled. You see,
and our rights are pending. Because the politicians must first settle their differences
and then come
but
to the
what Brian is talking about is very interesting, because he says we look for a way that we are not going to involve.
Not to involve,
yes,
but everything shouldn't peg on them. You know?
But the structure of this country is such that the parliament seems to be very powerful. And the problem with parliament now is they have their godfathers. So if we were to look at it in a different view, we now look at the structure of our political parties. Because there is no way a political party will sponsor you to parliament. When you go there, you start exercising your independence of vote.
What are you saying? You are not going to independent.
You cannot independent. You cannot be independent.
Kashane, but you are elected to represent the people.
That is where the problem comes in. Remember, do you represent the people or your political party? That is where people vote along the party lines. If you do not vote along the party lines, the party can actually censure you. Who do you represent? Do you really represent the people or your political party? And that political party, as we said yesterday, has an owner. It's a special purpose vehicle. So UDA, if, for example, UDA, we saw those people who did not vote for Gachagwa's impeachment, some of them were told they would be removed from their committees.
Yeah.
And we even saw a senator for Laikipia. he served in the Public Service, Parliamentary Service Commission. He was removed and replaced.
So does that contradict your position that Parliament is strong?
No,
It's actually weak.
Yes.
I said it is true. The number one, the Parliament is strong. Only that it is controlled.
It's allowed.
Yeah, it is controlled.
It is controlled by the people whose parties sponsor these people to that parliament.
So Parliament is supposed to be strong, but it
So
isn't.
parliament
Yeah.
is supposed to be strong. The architecture of parliament is supposed to be strong because it makes rules. Now, then, the parliament is supposed to make rules is depending on the people, the party owners, to
think
vote,
for them.
to know how they are going to vote. That is a contradiction. So, you see, an MP is supposed to make a law to oversight the executive. The executive is headed by the president. The president is a party leader. That party that this guy owns has sponsored Brian to the National Assembly.
You know, you know, it's a very difficult situation. But since I want us to move to another topic, and I wanted us to end the presidency topic with this, you've seen in the past, Kenyans have always written to all the dignitaries who are trying to come to Kenya. You see the Netherlands Queen and the
The
King.
king, yeah.
They received enough
Yes.
messages and mails.
Walisalimiwa.
And they were told not to come
Don't come.
because they do not want. And my question was,
Yes.
is the president liked, loved, or hated? And then in the Netherlands national TV yesterday, that was one of their top stories, that Kenyans have bombarded the royals, telling them, do not show up. Wherever Mr. President goes, Kenyans write, and even our AUC candidate
Yes.
has received a lot of mails telling them, do not elect this man because we want him in Kenya.
Yes.
We don't want him in Addis Ababa so that he can sort us.
I'll answer your question with a question.
Yes.
Was Kibaki loved, hated, or despised? The late Kibaki.
Most presidents are not hated. They're not despised, but they make unpopular decisions, so they are hated.
Kibaki was hated.
Yes.
At first, I would say.
Yeah, he was hated.
At first, he was
Because-
hated. But
Yes.
now everybody talks. Even every person who wants to vie for president in Kenya says
Wants-
that I will create-
emulate Kibaki.
Yes, I will emulate Kibaki. I will stew what economy. I will revive the economy like what Kibaki did. But
When Kibaki
up to
was,
where we are,
yes.
what is it that our good president is doing
Yeah.
worth to be
Remember,
emulated?
yeah. You see, when Kibaki was constructing all these roads, and when he was retiring, he was constructing roads in Mount Kenya. People in Mount Kenya were asking him, na hizi barabara kwani tutakula? But right now, at the moment, everyone
talks about
praises
the president.
Kibaki for his
But
roads.
Going
So-
back to what Charles is telling us about even the Kenyans bombarding those emails and even the AUC,
Yes.
the person who is an existential threat
Yes.
to Baba
Yes.
on his way
To
becoming the African
Union chair.
Union Commission chairperson
Yeah.
is none other than President William Ruto. He's the biggest existential threat to his bid because what he is doing, the things that we don't know whether he is the one behind what is happening in Kenya, but the ripple effect of what is happening in Kenya is that youth have taken up the social media to write emails to King of Netherlands,
Yes.
to African presidents, not to endorse Raila for AUC because his sponsor
Yes.
is making us live like we are in hell in Kenya. That's the problem.
So I think before we go into the AUC debate,
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
so for Kibaki, it did not matter that Kibaki was hated.
Yes.
He had his faults, and the post-election violence, I think, is
Is a mark.
a major blot.
Yes.
But then it did not matter that Kenyans hated him. The system was relatively working. It wasn't where it should be where it was supposed to be, but it was working. So it shouldn't matter, and the president shouldn't care whether people love him or hate him. He should just work to deliver for Kenyans.
Okay. Do you think he's working and delivering for Kenyans?
Oh, I think that question deserves an analysis, because
Yes.
you could argue both ways, actually, because we're seeing great strides in the affordable housing, although they don't know what to do with the affordable housing money that they are milking from our payslips. Juicy, we had them investing them in treasury bills and bonds, so that shows that there was poor planning. So on affordable housing, I think the president has tried on keeping the country safe as well. Kenya is relatively safe, but then on the economy, do we have money in our pockets?
You see, Ken, Brian, sorry, if you look at when Uhuru was the president, unga was 230 shillings. Kenyans had money to buy that unga. Right now, unga is 100 bob, but Kenyans don't have money to buy
They can't
it.
afford.
Yeah, just look at the deductions since Uhuru and
So who has performed better?
who has performed better. But you know the mess that
Brian is telling us
that
we
the
should
president
give
the
Ruto
mess
time.
the mess.
Brian is telling us.
No,
give
I'm not
Ruto
saying
there is
I'm not saying that you
there
should
is
give him time.
For him, I ask a very
I'm not-
straight question.
I don't have to say that
Is
you
he
should give him
working?
time. His presidential time.
Is President William
term
Ruto
gives him
working?
time.
I've said that.
So who was delivering better?
Yes.
Yeah, but there was. You go to the petrol station.
Uh-huh.
There is a subsidy for
Yeah.
fuel. These subsidies, we are saying they're expensive, but there was subsidy.
Yeah.
And that money was being taken back to the oil companies because that money would end up in other people's pockets. So there was money in the economy. There was money around.
But then, you know, to you, the consumer, when you go to the petrol station and find the subsidy, you'll be happy. But what does it take to give Kenyans such an incentive? What does it take to subsidize petrol, to subsidize unga, and whatnot? What does it take? What did it take Uhuru to do all those things? It took him intense borrowing.
And which William is still borrowing.
He is.
Yes.
But William, I think the president, you call the president William. Mnajuana. You know, the president had to deal with the messes of the former regime.
That's Brian.
Truth be told.
We are dealing with the messes that we found in this government. That's what Brian is telling us.
Truth be told.
2 years down the line.
Yeah, truth be told. This man left a
Big
deep
hole.
Yes.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
But is William Ruto doing the right things to get us out of that hole? So far, I don't think he is. I don't think his strategies are aimed to get us from that hole. I don't know what drives him, really. I don't know.
In wine, there is truth. Ashane.
That's what we said yesterday. There is something that the chairperson for the National Assembly Committee on Budget, Honorable Dede Nyoro, said that when economy is doing well, it is not for us to be telling the members of public that the economy is working. It is the people who should feel that the economy is working. And economy is where we shall judge our president.
Yeah.
And economy, despite the science and so many huge numbers, figures saying that at this point, Kenyans are not feeling that the economy is doing well. And there's something that is very important that Brian has said, that it really does not matter for the president, whether people like him, hate him, or even despise him. The president should focus on working for Kenyans. If indeed he is advised that we shall feel what he has been doing, Rita Agoje, but he's more focused on attention. He doesn't want to be criticized. You see? When Raila goes to the streets or even says, he calls him. You see? So those are the things. He should not spend most of his time seeking for validation. He is already the president. The president of Kenya is called William Samoei Kipchirchir Arap Ruto. That's a fact. He doesn't need to seek validation or legitimacy. That is a fact. Nobody will change that fact. Let him just get silent, work for Kenyans. The fruits will speak for themselves.
For the fruits shall be seen.
The fruits shall be seen.
Gentlemen, we are almost closing, and I think we will not tackle the AUC because it's a whole lot of things going on. We'll tackle it tomorrow. Brian, you've seen Uhuru's presidency. I know you were young, you were in Moi University then. You heard about Kibaki's presidency.
I experienced it. Boy.
You heard.
I experienced Moi's presidency, although briefly.
No, I'm coming to Moi. You were told about Moi's presidency.
How young do you think I am?
And your father gave you history of Kenyattas' presidency. What is your take of the whole 5 presidents?
5 presidents.
Yes.
I think we started off on the wrong footing.
Yeah.
With Jomo Kenyatta at the helm of Kenya.
Yeah.
I think he had the chance to, get the system working from the get-go, from the start. Yeah. But he preferred this politics that we have inherited, we have passed on to generation after generation. The politics of hero worshipping, the politics of cronism, and what have you. I think if the founding father had set a good foundation, we would be miles ahead. I say this because when you compare Kenya to other African countries, even in our region, Kenya is a powerhouse in East Africa. Among the East African countries, Kenya has the least natural resources. So this tells you that Kenyans are very creative. Kenyans know how to, lift themselves up. So they just needed the good start. But, other presidents have had the opportunity to reset
the country into the right path. Yeah.
And Kibaki tried. We all agree that Kibaki tried because he took us from one level to the next. The only inadequacy, I think, is inability to manage politics. Yeah, he had disregard for friends. That's why he didn't find it any difficult to betray his allies, to go back on his word, on his memoranda of understandings.
2002. Between him and Raila Odinga.
Yeah. but then he tried. And then came Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru had great ambitions. He had big dreams. He thought of, I think he wanted Kenya to, he wanted to spring Kenya to a level that we've never seen. Hence his mega projects, left, right. But then he lacked the capacity to examine what he wanted, to really consider the projects that he wanted to initiate. That's why he went for huge borrowings. He went for loans that didn't make sense. Yeah. President Ruto, still fairly young in his presidency, he has the opportunity to, put a pause on what he considered bad 2 years ago. He said, when you find yourself in a hole, you stop digging
it.
Yeah. He has the opportunity to, he's still the president. He can say, hata kama tumefanya hii for the last 2 years, we can start afresh. Yeah. And maybe